Hey everybody, so in my last video I explained that I had to overhaul my ladders in my game. I always wanted them to work like Half-Life 2 ladders, but I kind of just figured it wasn't really worth it and I didn't know exactly how, so once people started leaving feedback that they didn't like the ladders, I was like, okay, you know what, I'm just gonna sit down and figure out how to do it. So, the result is this. So it snaps you to the spline here, and it puts you in fly mode. That's basically all that's happening. So let's go ahead and create the actor for the ladder itself. And I'll call it BP ladder. First we'll need our static mesh. And we can drag that over the default scene root and make that the root of the actor. And set your mesh to the ladder. Then let's add a collision box. Box collision. This is the overlap box that activates the ladder. And that is 8 by 50 by 120. And then raise it up by 120. And over X by 30. Let's add a capsule collision. This can be bottom exit. And then just whatever your character size is. So we'll go to the character here. The capsule component, the height is 96 and the radius is 55. There we go. So the location Z should be 96. And move it over outside the overlap box. Maybe like 100. Okay, and we can right click duplicate for top exit. And for the location height here, we want the ladder mesh is 200 units tall. So we just take 200 and add 96 and it becomes flush. And just place that approximately where you'd want the player to exit. I'll move this one over a little bit too. And finally, we need a spline. Once again, parent that to the actual root. So this, you want to make sure the player won't clip into the ladder when it snaps to the mesh. So if you want, you can kind of just use this as a reference. So about 75. Looks like it would be good. Control Z. And so same thing, you want to raise this to 96. That's the center of the player. And then you can select this second point here. This is the length of the mesh, right? 200. All it is the center of the player. And it's up 200. And then they will blend into there. Okay, so it looks like that's it for at least the viewport part, components. So in Event Graph, we can select our overlap box, scroll down in details, and add an event for on
on component begin overlap. And while we're there, set your collision. So this is just default Unreal stuff. So I'm only going to do overlap only pawn. But if you have any enemies or any other characters that will overlap, that will be classified as pawns, you'll want to create a new collision profile that excludes all those. Or what you could do is cast to your player pawn. So mine is something like, yeah, demo character. And you can right click for pure or impure. Impure means you have these outputs here, so it'll only execute if it is successful. So only if it's the player pawn, then we can add a component, but we have to make that component. So just minimize real quick, we'll come back to this. And we want to add a component, actor component. I'll call it BP ladder movement component demo for me. So we can go back to the ladder and now we can add that. Add ladder movement component. And finally, in the ladder component, we want to add a variable for the ladder that it's controlling, or that it's based off of. So add a variable, and then variable type will be the ladder class. And instance editable and exposed to spawn should be ticked. Okay, we'll come back to that as well. Back in the ladder, now we have this pin, we can reference self. So the component is receiving the ladder as the variable. Okay, so let's open our ladder movement component and also the character you'll be using. So in the character, let's start off with an event, a custom event. And I'm just going to call this event blend. And we're going to need a few inputs here. A boolean for in, a start vector, and a finish vector. So this is so when you come into contact with the ladder, it smoothly moves you instead of teleporting you or snapping you. So we want a timeline. We can't put this in the component because components can't use timelines. I'm just going to call it something like ladder blend timeline. And that'll be play from start. Double click the timeline. Let's set the length to 1 second. And add a float track. We'll call it alpha. Right click twice. Add a key. The first one is 0, 0. And the second one is 1, 1. Okay, let's add another input for the event for duration. I'll right click, we can get the ladder blend timeline. We can get a reference like this. So this reference is this. And we can set play rate. And just mix that in the center here. And the new rate should be 1 divided by the duration. And the default duration should be something like 1.125. That's what I find looks the best. Okay, so now on update, we can take finish minus start position that's the difference. And yes, it matters which way they go. So we want finish minus start and then multiply by the alpha of the timeline. So we're blending the difference between the two locations. And then we can add that back to the start position. And then we can set actor location. And of course, since we're in the character, that will affect the character itself. Okay, so we'll just test this out for now. There's more to do to it, but for now, let's just switch over to the ladder component. With the begin play, we can get owner, cast to your character, demo character, and let's promote that to a variable. Let's just do the same thing for the controller. Cast to player controller. And promote that to variable as well. And just set the names to whatever you want. Okay, so now we can get owner character and we can do blend. It doesn't do anything yet, but let's select in for now. And so start position is get actor location. And finish. So we're getting on the ladder on begin play. So what we want to do is actually get ladder, and we want to get the spline. And the function is find location closest to world location. We can put the player's location in there, and then that's the finish location. Set this to world as well. So just so we can see better, I'm going to set this to 1 second. And let's see how that goes. So we should just slowly blend onto it. Okay, but you notice then, after we've blended on, we can just move around, right? So we're going to use the tick event to keep the player in place. But we don't want that to happen until after the blend has completed. So first, go into class defaults of the component, uncheck start with tick enabled, and then go into the character and move all this over. And so when we start, so we can't move around while we're like mounting the ladder. Let's disable movement for the player. And it'll automatically get character movement for you. Just type it in. Okay, and then on finished. So whether we're mounting or dismounting the ladder, we're going to set the movement mode to something. So we can pull that out, set movement mode. But instead of a branch, we can use a select node with the condition of in, right? So if we're getting on the ladder, so if in, we are setting it to flying. If we're exiting the ladder, false is walking. And you can either make an input for the component here, or what I'm going to do is just get component by class and search for the ladder component class. And we can do set tick enabled. Okay, so now we've got it going in fly mode, but we need some inputs to control that. So let's add input action. I'm going to call it IA climb, and we can duplicate that for jumping off the ladder. So in the climb action, we just want to set it to axis 1D, and then we can also make an input mapping context. IMC ladder. Let's open that up. Add one mapping for climbing and another one for dismount. So climbing will be, of course, W or whatever's forward and S or whatever's backward. Only thing is a modifier for S is needed for negate. And then, yeah, jumping off the ladder will be space. So let's put that to use. In the ladder component, we can move over our blend function for now. And we got this controller here, so we can get the enhanced input local player subsystem. And let's add a mapping context. So we just have to set this to a higher priority than your normal inputs. So in my case, it's just 1. And then it'll overwrite your existing mappings. Not overwrite, but it'll consume the input and as long as it's active. And of course, set that to IMC ladder. And plug that in again, don't forget that. Now the inputs themselves can be actually put in the component itself. So if you just type in your inputs, IA climb and IA dismount. So owner character, add movement input. That's what it's doing. You can split world direction there. So basically this can go straight into Z. However, if you want it to climb up or down based on like how high or low you're looking, you can copy this. So basically it takes the action value and negates it based on the control rotation of the player, which is the pitch rotation. And of course, false should be the default there. So that's climbing. And the ladder, jumping off the ladder, dismount will be get the controller. We're just removing the mapping context. Same one. And then set movement mode. Is walking. And then we can destroy the component. Select all that. I'll put it into a function called dismount. And then get your owner character. I'm going to launch him. So we can get actor forward vector. Multiply that. Right click on this to change to an integer. Multiply by 1,000. That's the launch velocity. We can tick these two. Okay, so we have our inputs, and I'll show you what happens. So we are snapping to the ladder, and we can go up and down, right? But we can also go side to side. And we can go up forever. Okay, so the movement is fine, but let's go back into the ladder component. So this deals with the tick event. So all we're doing is getting the character, set actor location, and we're just going to be clamping the character to the spline that we added to the ladder. So we can get ladder, get the spline, and that same function we used before, which was find location closest to world location, and we can put that into the character's location. Again, set that to world. And just for now, so get actor location. So put the character's location into here. Okay, so let's just see how that goes. So see, it's not letting me go further. And I can't go left or right either. So, the climbing part's fine. That's done. Now we just need to tell it when to exit. So we're going to have a branch with some conditions in the tick event. Here we have get actor location. So if the character's location equals what? Grab your ladder, grab your spline, and we're going to use get location at spline point. So that's what's going into there. Now, again, set that to world, copy it, because there's 2 points. 1 will be the top, and 0 is the bottom. So we can set this float here is just like a deviance. So if it's within 4 units, it'll accept it, which is fine. In fact, that's better. So let's just create 2 of these. So if you see what's happening here, we're going to be checking if the player is at the top or the bottom. But we have to do more than that, because when you enter at the bottom, you'll be at the bottom. So we need to also check if the player is trying to actually move down further, for example. So we need 2 AND booleans here. We can get the character. Can get character movement. And there's this nice function here. Get last input vector. Split that vector, because we only want the Z value. So we're going to get equals 1 or equals -1. So it's basically, well, it literally is checking if the player is either trying to go up or down. And remember, this is up, 1 is up, so +1 is up, -1 is down. So there's 2 conditions for exit, for automatic exit, which is at the top and moving up, or at the bottom and moving down. Now, you could do this like if true, exit. If false, check this. And then if that's true, exit. But I want to keep it as compact as possible, so I'm going to do an OR boolean. So if it's either of these, it will continue. Because either way, moving up or down at the top or the bottom, it will allow an exit. The only difference is where. And that can be achieved with a select node from finish. So we know it's either the top or the bottom. So we can select either one of these, up to you, as the condition. Let's give ourselves a bit more space here. But let's start with start. So the player's actor location is the start. So it's either going to be ladder top exit or ladder bottom exit. And call get world location on both of those. So just pay attention to your condition here. So this is 0, so this is the bottom. So the bottom is true. True into bottom, and then false into top. Okay, so the tick event should be good. Just for fun, let's see what happens. Nothing. Nothing happens. Okay, I'm going to reset this too. So let's go to the demo character timeline. So what are we doing? So we're disabling movement. That's right. We set the play rate. Yep. So in either condition, we want this to happen. And then we start to move between the two locations. When we look for the component, let's just add an isValid. And then in the component, let's pull from the dismount function, just copy the remove mapping context. So right before the blend. And then after the blend, we can destroy component. Let's try that. Okay. I mean, that's pretty much it. Hopefully this wasn't too, like, convoluted. I had to record this twice. But yeah, thanks for watching. Always appreciate it.